This video, we're going to understand and resolve your depression. We understand that depression can be very serious, and ultimately our sadness is an expression of something about us. It's an expression of who we are. However, when it becomes disordered, this expression of sadness can actually become destructive. It can start to get in the way of our life. It can hinder our productivity. It can prevent us from feeling any joy or happiness. We can lose our hope, and eventually we can actually want to destroy ourselves. Suicidal ideology is very serious, and even more serious when a person starts to attempt suicide or seriously wants to die. This is something that should be taken very seriously, and if you feel the desire to end your life, you should reach out to help from a professional immediately. This is something we should take very seriously, and we should do whatever we can to prevent the loss of life, including the loss of our own life. But for most people, when they experience depression, it hasn't gotten to that point, but it still becomes disordered when it's interrupting our life or preventing us. As I mentioned, your depression is an expression of something about yourself, often something beautiful. So I'm not trying to be dramatic and say that the pain is beautiful, but you have to go deeper than the pain itself to understand what is this pain actually expressing. In our other videos, we've discussed the metaphysical self. You have a construct of the self in the mind. Your self, the metaphysical self, the thought self, is made up of your values, essentially. The values, the things that you value, are who you are. So when something violates your values, your emotional system gives you psychological pain. The pain that you experience is very real. Your subconscious mind, which controls the emotional system, has the ability to cook up a cocktail of very real chemicals, and those chemicals make you feel physically in pain, physically uncomfortable when you are experiencing pain, such as anxiety or depression. A person can experience depression for any number of reasons. One man experienced depression that I worked with because he was separated from his daughter as a result of a separation from his spouse. One woman had depression because her child was injured from playing outside. Her child was shot in the face by a shotgun. Her child survived, but she always was plagued by feeling like she was a bad mom as a result. I've experienced depression before. After feeling burnt out from working really hard at something that was important to me, but still feeling that I wasn't good enough, or that I wasn't appreciated enough for the work that I put in. Some people can feel depressed after failing a class, failing an exam, losing a job. But ultimately, your depression is an expression that there's something you value and something has violated that thing that you value. Most often with depression, when we continue to feel it over time, we're continuing to focus on something that we cannot control. So depression often results because we're focusing our mind on very painful thoughts. These may even be realities, but it's something that we can't control because it's in the past. It has already happened. So in order to feel better from depression, we're going to need to be able to focus on what we can control. I'll give you this acronym that you can use in order to deal with depression. BFF. BFF. Remember BFF. when you're dealing with depression. First of all, seeing the beauty in the pain that you're experiencing. The beauty is that it's expressing something beautiful about yourself. A man that's sad that he's not with his daughter, that shows that he values his daughter. A woman that's sad that her child got hurt, that shows that she values being a good mom. Your depression is an expression of who you are. That's why you have it. A good person often is someone who's suffering from depression, someone who feels guilt, who is not psychopathic, who experiences pain at seeing someone else suffer or suffering themselves. The second F in this acronym is find the extreme thought. Often in these situations, actually always, there is some thought that is driving, fueling the pain of depression. Depression is feeding off of a negative extreme thought. You must find the extreme thought. In the case of the woman who was sad about her child, the extreme thought that she was suffering from was, I am a bad mom. In the case of the man who lost his daughter, his extreme thought was that he kept focusing on what he was missing in his daughter's life. And that brings us to the final F, fight. When you actually fight those extreme thoughts, you will feel your depression go down and your hope will rise and you will be able to move forward. In the case of the man, he found that when he stopped focusing on what he was missing in his daughter's life and he started focusing on what he could control, which is to change his life, to focus on his finances, to focus on his mental health, and to get into the best position possible to get his daughter back and to be a part of his daughter's life, he felt better. It was proper a lot of times to be sad about certain things. But when we focus on what we can control, when we fight extreme thoughts, only then can we end our depression. In the case of the mom, feeling like she's a bad mom, that's an extreme thought. It's a generalization, the concept that there's a such thing as a bad or a good mom, and that she is categorized as a bad mom, when in reality, the very fact that she is sad about what happened to her daughter suggests that she loves her daughter, and thus we would consider her to be a good mom. But she has to fight that thought by utilizing the same critical thinking that I'm employing right now. Is it really true that there is such thing as a bad mom? Is she really a bad mom? Isn't this something that she couldn't have predicted? She could not have controlled? When she's able to fight that thought, I'm a bad mom, and see that that's not something that's true, and take her belief in that down to zero, and instead replace it, focus it on something she can control, something that's positive, such as, I do everything I can for my daughter. I've been there for my daughter in every way that I could. Then she can move forward. Then she can beat the depression. Don't forget to fight. It's good for us to transmutate the sadness at a certain point into a nice, even, slow-burning anger, a passion for change, and get to work on what we can control.